Back now at 7:40 with an NBC News investigation on the artificial turf millions of children play on across this country. Could some of the material be making some players sick? NBC's Stephanie Gosk has an in-depth look for us this morning. Stephanie, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Willie. You know, this is an issue that will resonate with a lot of parents, especially anyone who sweeps up those little black dots in their home after practices or games. In communities across the country, natural grass has been replaced with turf. Now some, including a determined college soccer coach, are asking, is it really safe? Casey Sullivan may have taken an afternoon soccer game like this for granted if he had never gotten that diagnosis.
The doctor came in and he said, in all my years of medical practice, this is the worst x-ray I've ever seen, the worst chest x-ray I'd ever seen. Hodgkin's
lymphoma, stage 4. Sullivan was just a college student at the time, a young, fit goalkeeper on the soccer team.
The doctors never really had a good answer.
Years later, after beating the cancer, Sullivan saw University of Washington soccer coach Amy Griffin on the local news.
Nose over toes!
2 of her goalkeepers had been diagnosed with similar cancers. A terrible coincidence, she thought, until taking one of her sick players for chemotherapy.
The nurse said, "Don't tell me you guys are goalkeepers. That is so crazy. You're like the 4th goalkeeper I've hooked up this week."
Her goalie had a theory.
She said, "I just have a feeling that it has something to do with those black dots." This is the stuff everybody's talking about.
The black dots, called crumb rubber, are actually shredded car and truck tires used in turf fields to fill the space between artificial blades of grass. They contain all the same chemicals found in most tires. The International Agency for Cancer Research labels 4 carcinogens, while adding that at low levels of exposure they are considered safe. On a soccer field, goalkeepers, more than any other player, roll around on the turf every practice.
You end up ingesting the crumb rubber accidentally as a goalkeeper. It's unavoidable.
Sullivan reached out to Coach Griffin, and now he's on the list. Names the coach continues to gather of soccer players who have developed different types of cancer. 38 altogether, 34 of them are goalkeepers. A list is not scientific proof. There is no research directly linking crumb rubber exposure to cancer.
Many of them are blood or lymph-related cancers, but there are others in there too. What I would say is that in general, it's very difficult to study the relationship between an environmental exposure and cancer.
No available studies replicate goalkeepers' playing conditions, but many researchers, states, and localities defend the turf safety. Davis Lee has a PhD in chemistry and sits on the Synthetic Turf Council board.
There's certainly a preponderance of evidence to this point that says it in fact is safe.
An NBC News investigation put that assertion to the test, gathering available studies and speaking with pediatricians, scientists, and advocacy groups who say more research should be done.
Turf fields come with a number of real risks and a number of real benefits. And every community that's faced with deciding what they want to put in has to kind of weigh in the different risks and benefits for that situation.
Among the available studies the Synthetic Turf Council points to was one done by the EPA in 2009. The agency itself describes the conclusions as limited. NBC News repeatedly requested an interview, but after several emails and 2 phone calls, the EPA refused. In a statement, a spokesperson says the use of crumb rubber remains a state and local decision, and more testing needs to be done. Well, if more research needs to be done, why are we allowing our children to play on this surface?
Sure. Well, more research can always be done. I mean, the question is whether or not the synthetic turf is safe. We've got 14 studies on our website that says we can find no negative health effects.
Pro athletes and school kids alike are playing on more than 5,000 crumb rubber fields around the country. New York City parks and Los Angeles schools no longer install the surface, citing multiple health concerns. Other cities with the turf say it's cheaper and more durable than grass and provides more outdoor space for kids to play. Sullivan wants his girls to play soccer, but he worries about their exposure to crumb rubber.
Our oldest, who's 4 years old, she just started playing soccer, and I wouldn't want her to be a goalkeeper.
Steph, anybody who's got a kid has seen this stuff. Natalie, you were just talking about it. Soccer, football, whatever the sport is. We want to be clear here. There's no medical connection right now between these people getting sick and the turf they're playing on. So this is really a call for more research to look further into it, right?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And, you know, the wide-ranging research that's being called for by some people is both difficult and very expensive. And many of the people that we've chatted with have said that they hope the federal government will step in some way and conduct that kind of research. Both the EPA and the Consumer Product Safety Commission have done studies in the past, limited studies. Now people like Coach Griffin, who you saw in that piece, and Casey Sullivan are hoping they step in and do much more.
Sounds like some people are going to step in now. Stephanie, thanks so much for that report. Really interesting.